We were talking with a cybersecurity insurance person recently, and it was very interesting dialogue. So, cybersecurity insurance, it's becoming more and more of a requirement for companies, similar to SOC 2. A lot of times, companies are having a hard time landing new business if they don't have their SOC 2 report and they don't have cybersecurity insurance. Very important mechanisms. So, what is cybersecurity insurance? Well, first of all, it's not a catch all. I literally have companies tell me, well, I don't need my SOC 2 because I have cybersecurity insurance. Really can't wrap my mind around that. That would be like driving your car 100 miles an hour with no seatbelt and not stopping at stoplights or signs. And then when you get pulled over, well, I have cybersecurity insurance. Uh, uh, okay, but you're being reckless. You're not being responsible. You're not observing the laws and the normal practices. You're going to be dead. Your cybersecurity insurance ain't going to matter. And they're probably going to deny your claim anyway when they figure out how you were driving and that you were being completely irresponsible. So it's the exact same thing with cybersecurity insurance. And it's an evolving thing. I'll be real honest. I'm surprised when I talk to some of these insurance people because they're still trying to figure this thing out. Like this is insurance is about risk, right? It's a transfer of risk. So basically, I buy insurance for someone else to have the bulk of my risk, just like on our house. I buy insurance on my house with a 1% deductible so that my risk is 1% and somebody else takes the rest of the risk. It's the same thing. That's what insurance is. So the insurance people, their whole job is to figure out the risk because they're bearing the risk, right? After the 1% or whatever it is, they're bearing the risk. So they're trying to figure this thing out. Because let's face it, breaches have been crazy over the last couple of years. Companies are, because of all the cloud infrastructure, there's companies out there slinging stuff left and right, not being secure and doing crazy weird things. And so it's just nuts. And so every breach that happens, they're starting to do a lot of deeper analysis and trying to figure out, okay, what was in place, what wasn't in place, companies that don't get breached, what did they have in place? But quite frankly, sometimes it might not have anything to do with that, right? One company may get breached because yes, they left holes, they left doors open, but another company may have the exact same doors open, but they didn't get breached because nobody took advantage of them. So the analysis maybe has validity, maybe doesn't, but it's coming, right? And so it's interesting in talking to these people because they're just not there. They're trying to like figure this out. And so something like a SOC 2, I would think you get a discount on your cybersecurity insurance. Or if you don't have some sort of security assurance, you can't even get cybersecurity insurance, but that's not the way it is. It's very curious. I think it will probably get to that point at some point, but right now that's not what it is. So it was funny talking to them. There were three things that they're really harping on right now for cybersecurity insurance. And of course it changes all the time, and so if you have it or you've talked to them, put in the comments if you've heard something different in the cybersecurity insurance people that you've talked to or your experience with it of late. Put that in the comments. I'd love to hear that. But here's what this person told me, that there's three things. So MFA, multi-factor authentication, which makes a lot of sense, that basically if I'm logging in, I need to validate either with my phone or some sort of other way that, yep, that is me logging in. That's MFA, multi-factor authentication. And it's so easy, and a lot of tools you can just switch it on. It's the easiest thing, and everybody has a cell phone, so it just pops up on your cell phone. It's super easy to turn on for most companies. Sadly, a lot of companies don't turn it on, so turn it on. Turn on MFA. Just turn it on. It makes it so much better, because here's the thing. If your username and your password is compromised, MFA is a compensating control for that, right? So if I know your username and password and I go to log in, and then it pops up on your phone to validate, and you look at it and go, I'm at the beach. I'm not on my computer right now. Denied. Whoop. Now, first of all, you've kept me out. Second of all, there's an alert that there's potentially a compromise, right? And so you can see why MFA is important. Now, what's funny, the other part of MFA is complex passwords, but that's not really covered here. They don't really cover that. It's just funny, just these three things. And it's all based on kind of their analysis, so it's kind of interesting. Another is EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. And so basically, think of your network, and then you have all these endpoints on it, servers, laptops, mobile devices, workstations, all of this, all these endpoints, right? Now you got Internet of Things, so you got a whole bunch, right? And so the idea is each one of these items on your network is a door in, right? And so the more you can do to close the door at the endpoints, the idea is it keeps everything safe, right? So there's a lot of tools out there. There's antivirus. There's all sorts of whiz-bang tools, again, depending on your budget and resources of what solution you can implement. But there's also some more simplistic approaches, and it's all based on risk. If you take salespeople, for example, that have access to nothing in their environment, you can do maybe a less fancy EDR solution for them. Not that you would buy different solutions, but just roll with me here, because they don't really have access to anything. And if you're good about your access control and making sure that they don't have access that they shouldn't have, then you're mitigating the risk that way. So that's different. However, if you've got people over here that are answering phone calls and receiving credit card data, and people are talking to them about their health issues, well, the risk is greater there, right? So those endpoints are higher risk. And so you want to have potentially a different posture about that. If you don't do this in your company at all, this is all you have as salespeople, well, your technical control of EDR is not going to look the same as this company's, right? So it's all about fitting that right solution. But the point is, your endpoints are the doors in. I mean, it's an obvious door in, right? So what's on that device to detect that something is going wrong? Like, for example, if all of a sudden a file encrypt, a lot of these tools, they go, oh, whoa, 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 and they stop that activity. No more files getting encrypted, which is a sign of ransomware, for example. So that's how you stop it, right? Stop it right there where it's coming in, and it stops it. And if the user is indeed doing it, that's fine. Then obviously it can be continued, but it stops it. It sees that pattern and stops it in its tracks before it's been allowed to take hold. And so that's where that's important. And then a response, which is kind of what I just talked about, it stops that action. It doesn't let it continue. And so you can see why cybersecurity insurance people are like, oh yeah, that's a good thing, because that's like all the doors coming in. Let's make sure all those doors are shut. And then if one of those doors ends up being open, let's have something in place that will shut that door. And so that's the whole point of EDR. And then MFA we talked about. And the last one is backups. Very important, but it's not just backups. I saw a meme just the other day, again, that it was being funny that, oh, the server went down. Oh, okay. Where's the backup? On the server. Okay, well, that wasn't very smart, right? That didn't mitigate the risk of the server dying, and then my backup is on the same server. Like, no. And most companies have that nailed pretty easy these days. Like, there's so many cloud backup providers. So make sure you encrypt your backup. But there's so many cloud backup providers that it's easy to do backup. Some company has talked to, if they don't do cloud, they'll have their on-prem data centers, and they back up to the other data center. Well, there you go. Now you've got it in a whole different region. You've got it in a different location. If this one goes poof, I got my backup over here. And then a lot of companies, they'll have, they'll do their backup kind of however they do it as a standard practice, but then they'll ship a copy into the cloud and they'll have it there. And that's a great way, because if ransomware comes in, locks everything down, and you have a backup, you'll be down, you'll still be impacted. However, you can be like, phooey on you ransomware people, I got a backup that you don't have access to it. But if it's all connected on the same network, and if they can somehow get around and get to it, then you've defeated the whole purpose, and they'll be able to lock you down, which is what we've seen happen. So backups, you can see why the cybersecurity insurance people are really focusing on backups, because that is the way to recover your business, even though obviously it will still have an impact. So cyber insurance, huge thing. You definitely want to be able to obtain that. It will help your business grow, and obviously help to mitigate risk in your business in the unfortunate event that you are a victim of a breach. But you got to make sure you have the right due diligence in place. Make sure you understand, according to your policy, what is required. Make sure you have those things in place, and you do a certain measure of due diligence. Cyber insurance is not just a case of I bought it, therefore I don't need to do anything. That's ridiculous. We would never do that with any other insurance. I bought house insurance on my house, so I never have to do any maintenance on my house. That's ridiculous. The insurance company's not going to pay for that. Well, cyber is the exact same way. So make sure you understand the requirements of the policy policy, make sure you have at least those controls in place so that your cyber insurance is not jeopardized. However, make sure you have your whole security program built out. If you are building and running your security program the way you should, these cyber insurance requirements should be stupid easy to pick off. Like easy, because you're already doing the bigger picture. You're already focusing on keeping your business secure. You shouldn't have to have the insurance company tell you what you need to do. If that's your security posture, that's not a security posture at all. And so don't do that. But it is very interesting to know that MFA, EDR, and backups, those are kind of, just this past week, those were kind of the standard for this one particular insurance person that we were talking to, that at a minimum is what needed to be in place to even be considered for cyber insurance. And then this thing is changing daily, weekly, hourly. And so make sure you stay on top of what those requirements are. Make sure you stay on top of that, because the last thing you want to do is have a problem, be dealing with some sort of breach, only to find out that your insurance denied because you didn't meet certain requirements. So definitely post in the comments if you've had different experiences or additional requirements from talking to cyber insurance or even trying to get it. By all means, post in the comments. I love to hear real world feedback. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that.